Hi, my name is Joseph, and I've been thinking about Muse and the experience that they do when one goes to see them live. So, I recently saw Muse live. I just saw them this past week. Let me pull up the calendar really quickly so I can give the exact dates. I saw them April 12th at the Honda Center Theater, the Honda Center Arena. And then I also saw them last week on April 6th at the Crypto Arena, formerly known as the Staples Center. And so before I continue, let me just quickly say I do have a long history with the band Muse. I've been a fan of them since I was in the 7th grade. I do happily consider myself to be a muser. What are musers? Individuals who are fans of Muse. Muser. And I did also see Muse. I was fortunate enough to see them at the World Turn last year, and that was really cool to have been able to see them, especially as someone who I first saw Muse my freshman year of high school, and knowing that the year before that they played at the World Turn and I just missed them by 1 year. That always did make me a little bit oh no, why couldn't I have been born 1 year young 1 year before when I was actually born, right? So all of that just to establish that I have a history with the band. I have seen them close to 20, if not then a little bit over 20 times, and I have seen them live on every tour since their since their Black Holes and Revolutions tour. Their Absolution, Origin of Symmetry, and Showbiz tour. Unfortunately, I was just too young for those. I was not yet a Muse fan. The only tour that I have missed since then was the Simulation Theory tour, only because I was a graduate student during that time, and unfortunately, I didn't have much funding. I was working, but only part-time. Well, I'm still a part-timer. Hopefully, I'll be a full-timer. I'm an adjunct instructor. But going back to during when I was at graduate school, I was just working part time as a tutor, an English tutor. So not really much funding, especially because I was in graduate school, so I had to pay for that in my schooling. So that was the only reason why, unfortunately, I had to miss Muse during the Simulation Theory tour. But I have no plans to miss any tours from here on out. Hopefully, fingers crossed, with everything. With the way that it's being, in other words, my current situation in life. Hopefully for future shows I'll be able to see them. But yeah, so why do I want to talk about Muse? Why am I thinking about Muse? Despite my long storied history with Muse, I'm not going to lie, the most recent album, The Will of the People, and then the one before that, Simulation Theory, as much as I do love Muse, I was feeling a little bit like other fans. I understand that we're never going to get an Absolution 2.0. We're never going to get an Origin of Symmetry 2.0. And I am personally fine with that. I do enjoy every album that Muse releases. I am a big fan how every album tends to have its own unique sound compared to the previous album. And I love that they sound so, well, maybe not so different each album, but again, each album has a unique sound to it and a unique aesthetic to it. I hate repeating myself, excuse me for that. A really good example of this is The National. As much as I do love The National, I would say that they're my second favorite band. Sometimes when they release new albums, it does feel a little bit tiring just because it sounds a little bit too similar to the previous album, which sounds a little bit too similar to the previous album, and so forth. With Muse, usually that does not occur because, well, Drones does not sound like Showbiz, and the Resistance does not sound like The Will of the People, right? So again, that's an aspect I do appreciate about Muse. But with that being said, I do wish that Muse would focus more on the rock side, so more on the guitar, drums, bass, and of course the piano. I'm a big fan of Matthew Bellamy, the frontman, as a pianist. I wish he would utilize the piano more often in his music. I focus less on the electronica side. With this recent album, I kept it more to myself. People who knew that it came out, my friends and family, they asked me my opinion if they wanted to, but I didn't really go out and talk about it unless there was a need to, like we were conversing about music or about live shows, and I'll bring it up, right? But I realized after seeing Muse last week and this week, the really cool thing about Muse is that they truly are an experience. In order to fully in order to fully grasp what Muse is attempting to do with each album, I think it's coming to the point where one also needs to see them live. And the reason why I say that is because, again, I do regret not seeing them during the Simulation Theory tour. But for The Will of the People, it was the first time where Muse was telling a story with their music. And I would argue that the story that they were telling, although some would say it's cheesy, it's very us versus them kind of narrative. I think it's very appropriate and also very apt of Muse. It's something that Muse has been doing since Black Holes and Revelations. I would argue that a lot of bands, a lot of artists, especially after 2020 and 2016, there was a shift in music to kind of talk and include social political concepts. But it's just like, well, where were you before that, right? These issues are always present, and lo and behold, here's Muse. They've been doing the same thing since before 2016, right? And I just mentioned that because just for those people who think it's cheesy, it may be cheesy, but it's Muse. It generally is Muse and what they believe in. And so if one has not yet seen Muse live, this tour, they were just telling the story of the people versus an oppressive force. Who is this oppressive force? I think Muse is letting the audience, viewer, the member, the fan, to make that deduction for themselves, to make that conclusion for themselves. Who is this oppressive force that takes physical representation within Muse's show during this current tour? And it was just really cool to see. I'm the type of fan who I do sing along. I do get pumped into it. One of my goals is to see Muse in Europe one day, because I am aware that in Europe the fans have a tendency to really sing along, not just with the lyrics but also with the instrumentation. For example, this would be Knights of Sidonia. They go oh 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 oh, right? So the fans sing along with the guitar. Really cool. I do that when I see them in America, but of course, usually it depends on context, and the people around you are also big Muse fans. They're more than likely doing it too. But if they're more newer Muse fans or not as invested into Muse as I am, they probably think, oh, this guy, he's singing with the instruments. What's up with that, right? So again, I'm just saying that I typically do sing along with Muse's shows, Muse's concerts, but this last two live shows, the way that they presented the material, it really did make me feel extra pumped up. Maybe I am projecting a little bit just because of my job. I'm having some issues with the idea of accountability and responsibility, and individuals are trying to put more of the individual's responsibility onto my shoulders, my burden. But I'm like, well, one needs to make the choice if they want to do well. I can't do the work for you, right? The same way, if one wants to defeat these oppressive forces, one has to make that choice for themselves. Other people can do it for you. My only issue with this live show so far is that if I could sit down and speak with the band members of Muse, I would ask them if they struggled with connecting the theme of if they had struggled with connecting the theme of what they wanted to share with their fans and connecting it as a whole with the concert experience. What I mean by that is, so if one goes to see Muse, if one is worried about spoilers, then click away from right now. But essentially, I would argue that their concert currently has different phases. The first phase introduces the people being defeated, but the people choosing to stand up for themselves. And there's actually on stage represented of this a masked individual who I would argue represents the people, and he has his hand out like this, and Muse plays in front of this individual who represents the people. Then after a certain point, it shows that the oppressive forces are not going to back down, that they're going to continue fighting. But the stage design doesn't really reflect this. It's not a statue, but this representative of the people, this big half individual, it disappears, and then it's more your traditional concert, kind of rocking out, having fun, the band moving around, and you have the set design, the lights and everything like that. And then all of a sudden, before the first encore, towards the end of the show, we get the second phase of the story where the oppressive forces are now present on the stage, and instead of the people, we now have the oppressive force who looks like, if one of us ever played Guardian, Destiny 2, they look like warlocks. I'm not gonna lie, they look like warlocks. But I guess a more traditional term would be, I guess they do look a little bit demonic, a little bit hellish. But I would argue they look less like demons, more like people wearing armor, more specifically more like Destiny 2's warlocks. But we now move from the representative of the people to the representative of the oppressive forces, and that was really awesome. But my only issue about the show is that from the people to that, going back to that more neutral traditional concert setting, and then going back to telling that story, it did feel a little bit out of place. I did feel like maybe the story wasn't done being told, but maybe it was being done. Excuse me, let me start over. I kind of feel like the story that Muse was telling wasn't finished yet by the end of the show, or maybe it was. Maybe purposefully Muse wanted to leave an open ending to the story that they were trying to the tale that they were trying to express, so that the fans could realize it's up to us. This oppressive force is now on stage. What are we going to do? Are we going to let this oppressive force continue to subjugate and to dominate, or will we let our voices be heard and do something about this? Do something, either be it through voting, through through writing to your local politicians, through writing to your senators, and so forth, right? I don't think Muse is saying to have like a literal revolution, but I do think that Muse is saying that things do need to change, and the way that things does change is through the people, right? Us, the fans and non-fans as well. Anyway, but I just really felt the need to talk about Muse. I have seen other shows from other bands, but this was the first time where I felt like this was an experience. I've always felt like this about Muse shows. I always feel like I'm just a Muse fan and I need to keep my expectations in check. And every tour, I do that. I tell myself, I just really love them. That's why I think they're so great live. And I go see them live and they prove me right. I go in with my expectations low. No, I'm just a fan. I'm being biased. And then they prove me wrong to not have my expectations so low. I should have them higher because I kid you guys not, they always blow me away. Every tour just gets grander, more majestic, and bigger than before. And what am I thinking? Oh, that's so cringe. I don't want things to get bigger than before. I want things to be more intimate. The amazing thing about Muse is that you strip away all the stage design, the aesthetics of the lights, and they had fire in this tour, a la Rammstein, and you still have an amazing show, an amazing concert, an amazing live band, because Matthew Bellamy, the frontman, he doesn't just stand still, he moves around the stage. Christopher Wafflestone, I would say he's a little bit more stoic, yet despite that, he's also moving around, looking really cool, playing the bass, and he's always headbanging. And then of course, Dominic Howard, he's always really fun. I love how he always seems to want to speak with the crowd, and I just really love and appreciate his energy. He's always in the back and he looks like kind of tired a little bit. I know I probably look funny doing that, but just he despite him looking tired, I would argue one could tell that he really loves doing what he's doing. My point is that when you strip the show down, you still have a really great time because Muse themselves, they know how to deliver a live experience, and I think they're doing a great job of getting their live experience and now including into that, transcending a traditional concert. And I would argue the concert is starting to feel more like a musical a little bit, and that's really cool. I'm looking forward to what Muse is going to do next tour. And one of the coolest aspects, and I'm getting the chills just thinking about it, and again, it might be cheesy a little bit, but it's awesome. The rule of cool, right? There's a part where Matthew Bellamy actually goes from the middle of the stage and he ends up playing his guitar on the shoulder of the representative of the people, and he's playing The Globalist. And it's really cool. He looks really awesome doing it. And I did get the chills and I realized he was up there. And it was just a great experience. And another aspect I want to discuss, I love how when Muse was telling the story, it was like 90% their music. So Muse is known for using different artists in their outros and things like that, samples. But usually it's just in their intro or their outros. When it came to the parts where Muse was telling the narrative that they were sharing with their concert goers, with their fans, they were using their own music. Either just slowed down or a slightly faster version of it, or from the past as well. The music from Will the People, from the Second Law, the Isolated System, JFK from Drones. That's not really a song; it's just a sample of his. Well, that's also not original. Pardon me, that's a bad example. But going back to the Second Law, Isolated System. And The Globalist, those are songs that Muse made themselves, and they're able to apply it to this new tour where this theme is about oppression and subjugation and overcoming that. And why these older songs, why can they be applied to this current tour? Because again, this has been subject matter that Muse has been singing about forever now, right? It's not just something that they jumped on in 2016 and 2020. It's a factor that Muse has been singing about since before then, right? As much as some may not want to hear it, or for newer fans and they don't realize, during Panic Station, Muse did have a lot of political figures dancing with big heads, and political figures on both sides, right? So in other words, if Muse were to do a concert with political figures dancing right now, it would include, I'm not going to say names, I'm sure you guys are already aware who I'm mentioning, but it would include that former president, but also the current president, the current vice president, the former vice president, the former pope, the current pope, the world leaders of other nations, and so forth. Not just current world leaders, past world leaders as well, and also any relevant individual. So yeah, seeing Muse during this leg of the tour, The World of People, it truly was an experience. It always is an experience, and I'm truly feeling like Muse is transcending the concert setting, and it's becoming more like a musical. It will not surprise me if in 20 years from now, in the same way that we have We Will Rock You, a musical based on Queen's music, that we're going to have some kind of space rock opera based on Muse's music. And you know what? If that becomes true, they do create, if either Muse themselves creates a musical, or A fan creates a musical with Muse's music, I'll be there for it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. The last thing I want to mention is just I just love the eccentricity that is Matthew Bellamy. I just discovered yesterday that on his Instagram page, Matthew Bellamy ended up posting a poem for the concert goers at the Honda Center Theater or Arena, excuse me. And the poem is actually quite cool. And you know what? Let me see if I can find it really quickly and just read it to everyone. So, excuse me, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Here it is. So, Matt's poem for Anaheim. Let me put the fool. So, in the dream-laden land of Anaheim, where echoes of wonder do intertwine, a crowd gathered neath a starlight sky, the Honda Center as their cosmic ally. With the sounds of madness, their hearts did race as starlight's allure danced on every face. They sang along loudly, their voices entwined, and the ballad of Disney, where dreams are designed. A surreal sight, as if from a tale, a shred of Honda bike, a character did sell. Mickey Mouse himself, that ageless sprite, to the center of Space Mountain, a beacon of light. Through the haunted halls of the mansion they soared, and into the small world the voices roared. Like the wildest ride in the wilderness, each note bound them together in eurific bliss. Amidst a carousel of dreams and a pirate's plunder, the great crowd of Anaheim did thunder. The voices harmonizing with the rise and fall of a roller coaster's journey, a siren's call. So, to the crowd who sang so loudly and true, a heartfelt thank you in colors so vivid and hue. So that's from Matthew Bellamy. And I think that really does a great job of demonstrating just why I believe music is transcending the concert experience, and eventually the shows might be a form of pseudo-musical in the concert setting. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. If you guys are Muse fans, let me know if you see them live. If you have yet to see them live and you have tickets to this tour, let me know if you're excited about it. What songs are you hoping to hear? And thank you so much for listening. I do appreciate it. Have a great day and take care.